In the next session, we're going to explore how to adjust the lighting and also create some post-processing effects to the scene so it looks more higher quality for presentation. So at the moment now we're looking at the scene, right? We still have the lighting, okay? So we have one directional light. This directional light, if you turn off, you will see that it's actually just without any lighting except for the emissive. But the environment still is lit. So what I can do is actually we need to turn off the environment skybox. So where I go is go to Windows, go to rendering, lighting, and it will come out the panel here. So this is the panel where all the lighting setup you can actually explore in the future, like real-time global innovation to create very realistic lighting, and also how to generate or light map this one automatically. But we're not going to use light map at the moment, so what we do is actually we go to environment. I will now turn off the default skybox to 0 and none, and we get a grayscale environment. So this is actually the kind of color the skybox can actually achieve with this kind of quality. And you also can choose to light up with skybox or color, up to you. Probably this will not any effect because we have only the directional light is actually affecting the scene. So when I turn on the light again, now it's actually becomes normal. So this is kind of like the kind of startup we want to achieve at the moment. So this one, or everything else is needed to as is at the moment. So what we need to do now is actually we want to add more lights and actually maybe explore about what kind of lighting can we explore this. So the moment like over here, I want to maybe turn down the opacity a bit. Okay, maybe I'll just turn off and I'll see what else can I create from the lights here. We actually can play around all this. So the moment the direction light is the one we saw is using that's creating the sunlight, which is this one. This is a directional light. Okay, so we can change this one into something else, like point light, spotlight, area light. So we can explore how it works. Okay, so if I want to, let's say, add a light to the scene, I use a point light. So this point light here has a radius. So this radius is defined by this radius here. So we can change the range from here, and over here we also can change, let's say, the intensity. How much we want the intensity. We can create a dramatic effect by doing this one. Okay, so one of the things about this is called a point light. The point light is usually very directional. Means that it's actually when you put wherever you put, right, the direction will go 360 degrees. So if you turn on the shadows, right, you will see the shadows actually everywhere. Okay, it's actually facing all directions. So this actually creates those kind of dramatic directional light. Actually, most of the time it's quite not suitable for any scenes, right, to have this kind of lighting because the shadows everywhere. The problem goes again if you, let's say, turn on, let's say, the skylight, and you will see there's now multiple shadows going on. This creates a very problematic issue where these shadows will make it hard for players to actually identify what's going on. But it depends on the scene how you want to achieve it. But multiple shadows means also it's very expensive to render. Okay, so most of the time when you want to put a point light, I will actually put point light as the field light. So the sunlight will usually be the main light, the key light, and point light will usually just turn on the cast shadow. It becomes a field light. So field light means that actually I can just make it more minimal, right? Or maybe the range itself, or maybe less brighter, or maybe just smaller range to achieve some lighting effect. So one of the things I can try here is actually I want to mimic maybe lighting here. So or maybe I want to get an overall lighting. This one, maybe this one, the intensity I want to keep it the shadows is at least maybe lesser, so it becomes a bit more darker. I can use hard shadow instead or soft shadow. And then this one, the range, I can actually tone it down, and I will try to create something like a middle room dramatic effect at the moment. That maybe I'll just move the point light out a bit so it creates this kind of very atmospheric interior feel of it. And then the next thing actually I can notice here is actually the light source here, right? What we can do is actually we can also add more light component, more point light here, and this point light here we can just put near to the window, and then we change the range to be quite small. Okay, then we can burst out the lighting to create kind of sunlight effect. This also can use to create something like, you can change the color into something like, let's say, fire effect. It's especially quite fun to play with. You choose this kind of lighting setting. So this is also without shadow, because if you turn on shadow, it's pretty weird. So usually when you have this kind of multiple lights going on in the scene, right, we probably would choose to turn on the card shadow just to get the lighting filled in areas that we want it to fill. Okay, then we can still change the range, like it more smaller. Okay, maybe 1.0 would be nice, or maybe slightly more, but then we tone down the intensity. So these are some of the options we can actually play around with. Let's say we want to play a little bit lighting effect. Again, this is all the thinking about how we actually can play around with, let's say, lighting design. So using all this point light can be kind of a way to deal with fill light, and I can actually select all of them and just maybe push it a bit more if I want to, or maybe the range should be more. Finding the right balance of the light. So a lot of times the best way to adjust it is actually I usually will turn off the skylight for a while and just to see whether my light is working or not. So I can from there I can just tweak to the kind of lighting I want to achieve. Like this one's put to 5. Okay, to be okay, 5 is okay. And then this intensity, if you put down, you can see the sunlight effect, right? Okay, so then you actually can decide whether this one actually can just push a bit more. Since that should be 8 will be okay, will be stronger, but I mean this one can put it to 2. This is a very glow light effect. Okay, so maybe leave it that way, and then turn on the, let's say, the intensity of the point light here to kind of get the effects I want. Okay, 5 will be quite okay at the moment, and then I'll turn on the skylight to see what happens at the skylight. Then now I have the very nice mood effect already. So over here you can actually check, right, the correct lighting by going to the game scene. So this game scene right itself, right, is being controlled by the camera. So the camera itself, you can change the color to black. Okay, then this one is where all the effects will happen. So when you click on the camera, right, you can actually just move around, pull it down. Okay, so you can just see the preview here, and the preview will show you how it looks like in the final. So when you go and check this game view here, this is where it looks like at the end. And the moment looking something like this, right, will not change, right, because you cannot rotate the camera view. So this is probably for viewing the final lighting. Okay, so this is where those things is probably okay in the moment because we have the shadows. This one shadow will be okay already. But although we have the shadows in, and we should try to push out the intensity of the shadow strength, right? There's some things that's still missing here because we still missing kind of the ambient occlusion effect on all those connecting edges that we actually should have in a scene like this. In now moving forward, we're going to actually create post-processing effect to kind of further push all these elements into a new, better look. So how do we do that? Let's go and do now. First, we have these post-processing effect, such as the ambient occlusion that we can use here to create those occlusion shadows on the edges here, so it becomes more high fidelity. We actually need to set up the post-processing effect. Is outside of Unity because you can't find it here. We need to actually activate the packages that actually then we need to assign to the camera inside Unity. Okay, so at the moment you can see here there's no post-processing under the camera actor, and then everything we actually do on the post-processing will actually appears on the camera angle, the camera viewport. So let's go ahead and let's activate the post-processing packages. So what we need to do is actually we need to go to Windows, we need to go to Package Manager. When we open up the Package Manager, we'll wait for it to load for a while, and once it's finished loading, you can actually see all the different packages that can actually attach to Unity, and there's a lot of things you can actually try if you want to do some special effect like Pro Builder and stuff, right, to actually do level design. Pro Builder, one of them. Shader graph, like using node-based graph to create shaders. So the one we're looking for is post-processing. So we open up post-processing, right, you see here this one, post-processing. These packages you can actually install here. So over here I actually already installed, so we actually can, most of the time, it's still up to date. So if you haven't installed, you should click on the install button. Once you install this one, you look down here under the project, under the packages, if you scroll down, you will find the post-processing folder. Actually, it will be appear here. Okay, then you can open up and you see what's actually going on over here. So you see all the editors and stuff is inside here. Okay, so once I making sure it actually activates, so I then just close the packaging manager, and now I'll go to the project packages and look at the post-processing under runtime, and these are the stuff that I'm looking at the moment. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is actually I want to attach this to the camera. The way you need to do is actually a bit complicated. So over here, by default, this one should be default. So if you click on the main camera, if you have one camera actor here, if you type the camera, you should see only the camera here. So the camera actor, right, who has this layer here, that you need to change. If by default here you see here you only have 1, 2, 4, 8, 5, right, for default, and the last one is actually I added in. The way we add this last layer is actually go to add layer, and then you type the name post-processing. Okay, once you're done, so you can see here there's empty layer here. Once you type the post-processing, you can just change the default layer to post-processing. Once you change these two layers, right, then we can start adding in post-processing component to it. Okay, so now over here, everything is ready to set up. Actually, we're looking at something from this angle, but you can actually see from this is the camera angle. So whenever you change the angle here, you can see the camera will say the direction. So this is what you see. But inside the game view, you can actually see what is actually this camera is doing. Okay, so we can actually check from both, but mostly processing needs to activate from the camera viewport. So next thing we need to do is actually this camera here, we need to attach the script to this camera, and they will appear here. So one of the few things you can do is actually looking at the post-processing packages under runtime. If you go to the top and you see runtime, then you see all these colorful button, okay, all those colorful buttons. So we're going to add some of them into it. So the first thing we're going to add is actually the post-processing layer, this one we can just drag into the camera. So once you drag the camera and click on camera, you will see now we have the layer effect here. This is something that you can see. You also can add a few more, let's say like volume into it, and then we check again. Now we have the processing volume. Okay, so these are things we actually can add on one by one. Okay, so now we have all of them. This is what I'm seeing in a moment. And now the next thing I need to do is actually change layer to post-processing under the post-process layer. Then you can see it changed this one. Analyzing is up to you. You can actually change this one to something else. Once they attach all the script and we kind of like change some of this one, like this one to post-processing, and then okay, the next thing we want to check is actually the post-process volume, which is the one we actually also add on. We need to click on this global. So when it's global, means that actually the entire effect will affect the entire world, rather than actually just a very predefined square area. And the next thing we want to create is actually a profile. Okay, the profile here is something we need to create. We can actually create a new profile. Okay, so you can see here the main camera profile is created. Once it's created, this one will appear, the add effect button, and this is where we actually start adding in stuff like ambient occlusion under Unity, ambient occlusion. So we can actually add ambient occlusion into the effects here, and you see this is actually turned off at the moment, and maybe turn on all of them, and you can just try around then on and off. Okay, so you can see this effect here on and off. So once you adjust that, and you see the effect like something like that. So the intensity is actually to control how much the darkness is actually appearing, and then the color, you can just change the color. Usually you want to have little color can, or you just black color also okay. Then after that, if you want to click on ambient mode, this usually will not actually have light effects. But one thing I actually find out is actually like if you have finding, let's say, half time to adjust this one, right, because it's actually so dramatic at the effect, it doesn't give the nicer effect that I want to achieve with this ambient occlusion, right? So I can change this one to another mode, which is scalable ambient occlusion. So this one is actually, I would feel is actually more suitable because this one I actually can control the quality. Then I can actually, let's say if I want to control how thick is this area, I can just slide the slide bar. It's actually much better in way of, let's say if I use this function. So let's say if I put 0.3, then I'll just tone down the ambient occlusion a bit to, let's say 2. And then I can turn on and off. Okay, you can see there is much difference really. So this angle here is the only one you can see. So I mean this one also can see. So for both options, I think. So now we can see here the shadow. Can go closer to see the shadow, and then we adjust. So we can just go close up and see what's going on over here. So maybe I'll just change it to 1.8. So we have something like that. Okay, then we check back the camera. This is how it looks like. Okay, so this is ambient occlusion. It's probably get a very high fidelity effect if you just turn it on and just turn off and off from here as you can. Then the second thing we want to, let's say, add a few more things. Let's try adding effects, right? Under effects, there's a lot of things going on. So maybe one of we try is bloom. Okay, bloom is actually where we actually get the bloom effect on the scene. Okay, so let's try and see what happens if, let's say, we turn on the bloom. And probably you can check. Sometimes you don't see it from the scene view, you can actually see it from the camera view. So if you want to turn on the bloom and you turn on everything, right, then we can actually increase the intensity and see how it looks like from here, as you see that. So we can actually minimize it, let's say the threshold a bit, and we get a bit balloon in the entire scene because of the glow here. So you can see it also works the same for the scene. Okay, so I think Unity actually definitely improved a lot from their function since the previous version. Now actually they can see the effects on the scene camera also. So this is actually how it looks like when you turn on and off. You can see the bloom effect. You can actually try run play with the different setting here, and maybe you can get even colors. Or fast mode is actually kind of could be a cheaper version of this, and there's even things like texture density and stuff. You can actually, this one not really sure, I never tried before, so it's a new thing. But overall, it's just set up the threshold to get whether it's smaller, it will spread more, larger, it will actually spread lesser. So that's the only difference you're facing this one. And the intensity definitely is actually how the light will actually glow by the default quality. Okay, so this one, let's say put 4 and get something like that. And then clamp is probably not much effect here, so definitely can try around the settings. So diffusion definitely has some good effects here. You can see that the raw scene seems to be glowing. And performance ratio, you can guess yourself, this cut looks like a big glow effect, got ray effect. Okay, so maybe you can try around that also. So more probably we'll just keep it to basic. After bloom, we can actually try playing a bit more. What else can we add? Effects. So let's say we add. So a lot of things actually you can try them, but sometimes I'm seeing these things I actually mentioned before, the depth of field, color grading and stuff you can actually play around. And the one thing I want to try next is the vignette. So the vignette is actually the shadows beside the camera, right? So because at the moment I cannot see properly what's going on, because if you even I turn on the vignette here, and let's say select all, even I want to push the intensity higher a bit, I can see it from here, but also the camera is because it's black color, so I cannot see a lot of things, but it does create a lot of very nice effect. If you use this one, and you can just frame the entire thing properly for you, or whatever scene you're trying to present. So a lot of times this kind of effects actually create a lot of nice lighting mode, so you can usually utilize it. So to get this scene right from the back to a little bit gradient, so I need to go to camera again, and then just go up here, and I want to change the background to be something a bit brighter. Then you see, now you can see a little bit of the color of the vignette coming. Of course, because this thing I change and do a little bit coloring, let's say a little bit reddish to get kind of like mesh feel to it. So then looking at everything now, looks like it's probably very nice look effect. So definitely this is kind of the effect I want to achieve in the end. So we see the lighting, without lighting and lighting, you can see a huge quality Even here, maybe it's a bit dark, but you have see the layout area. In lighting, right, you need to see few things. Number one, you gotta make sure you have the direction light first, okay, to cast the shadow. Because without the direction light, will cast the shadow, there will not be any shadows in the scene that to define the direction of the, let's say, the character when they're moving. Second thing, right, is you think about which are the area you can actually put the field light. Example, like the wall room, like in the middle should be brighter, then corner should be a bit darker, and also the windows, the light source where all the light actually will come in, and those area you can probably put some field light to it and to lay out the darkest area of the room. So maybe exterior wise, some darkest area you can put a little bit spotlight there to lay out the area. Definitely, this is how some of the method we can try. After that, add on the post-processing effect, and you get everything nicely done. Okay, post-processing effect where you have the ambient occlusion, then you have the balloon, and also vignette, which actually create a very nice look. Even can try the other effects like color balance and also hue saturation stuff that you can change the entire feel of the game. Or even if you're doing first person, third person, you can do a depth of field. So overall, this is actually the end result, and looking at it, this is a complete work done for the entire semester. And overall, I hope you guys actually learn a lot, and this will help you in your 3D project when you start working on your first 3D project next semester, and then you know all the sort of techniques on actually how to do model asset, how to do texture alerts for a top-down isometric game, and then you know how to do lighting and how to do presentation properly.